golfing is much more active than you think of being leisure. It's like golfing is work. You're thinking, you're doing all the time, and so it's not really that typical type of leisure. There are other people that are, they're so much more extreme than that. That they think leisure is jumping off of cliffs and climbing mountains and
so more or less like sports?
Well, sports, but extreme sports and wingsuiting and things like that. So I'm thinking that there's always this next level of dangerous experiences coming about, and so that a lot of people, when they want to take a break off of work and go on vacation, that it's not really leisure that they're looking at. They're looking for adventure, right? And so I think a big part of leisure study should now be thinking about it's really adventure that people are going on. I know a lot of people that have to get off of vacation in order to rest.
So could it be that events? Sorry.
Yes. So could it be that events will be short term, like even mega events like Olympics in China, or now we're going to have it, and then leisure will be, even though it's not mega, right, but it turned out to be gradually engaged into human daily life. So you were thinking about this child all the time, you want to golf and you want to buy a new golf bag, and sort of those things. Could it be like that?
Yeah, I mean, leisure.
Look like that?
Yeah, by its very nature, leisure is temporary. And so you think of piling them on, one on top of another, to be able to create, a life filled with experiences.
But if you're retired, then you have leisure 24 hours a day. And you're looking for some work.
Well, many people, I mean, I'm like you, I don't plan on ever retiring because I enjoy work. Work for me is an experience, is transformational. But for many people, when they retire, they do get bored because then there's no longer any surprise, there's no longer any uniqueness, there's no longer any difference there. And so they start to look for things that are, out of that ordinary, out of the routine or the rut that they've gotten into.
But a lot of work probably in the next 2 to 3 decades is useless because of, let's say, growing technology. Like in the industrial revolution, some work was not needed anymore, and probably also in the next 20, 30 years, technology takes over a lot of work of people. So we will have to see a society where a lot of people don't work full time, or maybe for a certain period of time, and have a lot of, let's say, leisure time.
Right. Well, that is certainly possible. I mean, the level of automation increasing and the level of cognitive ability that computers and robots can now increasingly do does open up that possibility, really for the first time. In the past, any automation, any technology, we've always been able to incorporate it and create more jobs than the jobs that it replaced. Although the people that were replaced from those jobs were generally not the same ones getting the new jobs, right? So there's always economic dislocations. But the fast rise of digital technology and the ability of computers to take more and more cognitive abilities, IBM just recently renamed their stuff to be, cognitive. I'm trying to think of the second word, but cognitive computing is what they're calling it. The thinking computers that simulate thinking in a way that humans do, and so the possibility exists that they could replace a lot of lawyers, for example. I mean, nobody's going to be disappointed in that, other than the lawyers. But that's a real possibility. Accountants as well, other even maybe consultants at some point, and professions like that. So we may have a lot more leisure time as a result, which has been predicted by many people for decades, for a century or more.
Say taxi drivers, cars can drive themselves.
Right.
We don't need taxis. We need taxis, but we don't need taxi drivers.
You don't need taxi drivers. And that one I really do believe is going to happen. I mean, the autonomous vehicles will get to the point where we don't need taxi drivers. I mean, you think about all the countries like France is really trying to rebel against Uber and the ability to call a car and immediately have everything taken care of. It's really just an interim step to the point where you call a car, there is no driver. Right? It just autonomously comes up to you, takes you to where you want to go, and that will be the case in 10 or 20 years. And then there's a lot of people out of work because of that, and we need to create jobs for that. And that's one of the basic messages of the experience economy, is to recognize that jobs and commodities and goods and increasing services are going to go away. We need a sector of the economy in which we can replace those jobs, and that really is in experiences. And that's why from a global standpoint, from an economic development standpoint, from a government standpoint, we need to understand the experience economy and let jobs flourish in that economy.
But do countries where, let's say developing countries, where a lot of people work in this kind of still commodities-like sectors like manufacturing and agriculture, like in Thailand for instance, a lot of people earn their living still. Don't they have a job anymore in 2030?
No, they won't. I mean, the U.S. got rid of almost all of its manufacturing jobs. It's a tenth of what it was 40 years ago. China is where all, eventually they went to Vietnam and Thailand and Singapore and Korea and that. But then over the last 20, 30 years, the jobs have diminished there as they moved into other places, and still trying to Thailand, but most notably China and service jobs in India. And yeah, those jobs are going to diminish and go away. You already see that happening in China, where they're moving from manufacturing into service jobs, and eventually need to move from service jobs into experience and transformations.
And it seems like nobody wants to do the job anymore, I mean, especially for production. In Thailand, we have a problem with people who don't have the idea of how to really work on assemble their machine and so doing, because everyone wants to move to the service sector, and now they want to just sitting in the office, and or even worse, they don't want to produce and they let somebody else produce. Then could it be, how could I explain in terms of economy itself, like demand, and then we still have a demand, and then there is no more supply, especially for the hard work, like you say. How could it's going to be?
But whenever you talk supply and demand, you always have to talk a third thing, which is price. Right? Supply and demand only depend on the price. And when people say they say that a lot in America, there are jobs Americans don't want to do anymore, and that's just false. There's jobs Americans won't do at that price. But if you're going to raise the price, then they'd be willing to do the job. And that's the case. But with supply and demand, it may be that if you raise the price enough to get people to want to do the job, then consumers won't want to buy the product anymore because it's going to be too expensive. And that's how the economy fits together, right? The impact of it all. But still, the point is that we're going to need new sources of job growth, and that's going to be experiences and transformation in any country.
Is that an extra problem for developing countries?
Well,
everywhere the same.
Yeah, well, it's a problem everywhere. The developing countries will lag behind the issue of cognitive computing taking over for jobs, right? So there will be a lag there, but as you see that happening, then it's going to continue. It's going to reach more and more down, and it'll become a problem for developing countries into the future. And so they should be thinking about experiences as well. Of course, all countries have experiences. And again, just like they've always been around, all countries have experiences. In fact, tourism is there in developing countries as much as developed, if not more so. And tourism is the largest sector of the world economy, much less the largest sector of the experience economy.
GDP contribution is very small when you look at the GDP contribution, but very large sector. Everybody wants to engage into this service sector, but from the figure, it's surprising.
Right. Well, the World Tourism Organization says that 10% of the world's population is involved in tourism in one way or another. Now, that includes the taxi drivers driving to experiences and that sort of thing, but they wouldn't have as many of those jobs if there weren't tourists there, right, going around the city.
Last week there was an economical forum here in Bangkok where the government explained what they want to do in the economy in this country. And one of their ideas is to try to encourage middle-sized companies to innovate. Is the innovation coming from middle-sized companies or from big companies or from every company? Is it an attitude or is it size?
Right. Well, there are innovations that come from all the sectors in that, but a lot of the truly groundbreaking innovations are increasingly coming from small companies. And of course, all big companies start as small companies, generally with some innovation. And then as they grow, then they tend to get more hierarchical and tend to be less innovative, and then the action moves to medium-sized and to smaller companies. But there's no reason in the world that a big company can't be as innovative as 100 small companies, right? With all the people that are in there, but a lot of it is the mindset that they have and make sure that they are open to the creativity of individuals within them being able to innovate and create new
Obviously,
opportunities.
it should maybe cost money, investment.
Yeah.
Maybe big companies are more looking at their shareholder value and not too much risky investment or.
Right, but that's a surefire way to lose shareholder value in the long term. Right, what works on the short term. This gets into activity that I want to do for my next book on how companies can thrive forever. Working with my colleague Tim Corn. And that it is possible for big companies to do that if they approach it in the right way. And it's the only way to ensure that in fact they're going to be able to continue to provide value on the short term, is to be able to think long term and about the value that they create there. And because innovation is the lifeblood of any organization.
Do you have any example that you have been consulting for companies, for medium or small size of a company to try to innovate all the time that can even beat the bigger company? What would be the obstacles that they have been confronted with?
Right. I think there's just so many things that are in there, but one of the things that is increasingly happening is that companies are coming up with really building themselves around a meaningful purpose. And I see that more with small companies than with medium more than large, although it's possible in all again. Is that increasingly I think that companies will become purpose driven. That they have a meaningful purpose as sort of the North Star that they point to, that they want to have, that aligns everybody in the organization. Because now we align with command and control. We tell people what direction we're going to do, we control how they go about doing it. But with a meaningful purpose, you don't need to have that. You need to have the hierarchy. Everybody knows that this is what it's all about, and then they can themselves, with their own autonomy, figure out what it is that they need to do to be able to align with that meaningful purpose, and then let innovation happen as a result.
And also has consequences for, let's say, labor, because I read a story a few weeks ago about a German company that gives employees the freedom to take days off. While there's a structure like in the law that says you have so many free days, you can take more or less, they don't care. You just talk to your colleagues, and if you want to have a day off, you take a day off. And what happens, they take less days off than let's say legally they can do.
Right. And that happens in America a lot too, is that people don't take all the vacation days. And that's when they really feel it as an individual. When, again, part of their identity is that same purpose, and they want to make that happen. And they also recognize that others in the company are dependent on them. And so when you get that going, is that I don't want to take a day off because I know it's going to impact these other people that I care about, that have the same purpose that I do, that are trying to achieve that. And so it just completely changes the equations of how you work and how you think about working.
Okay, so my microphone is really not working good.
Today? All right. Okay. So as we going to the age of going to ASEAN, I think you know, ASEAN.
Community.
What do you think about what destination marketing for the ASEAN community could be? ASEAN is 10 countries of Southeast Asia. Yeah, they're going to group.
And also tourism and hospitality industry also. I think I should change the microphone. Can I have a new microphone? Thank you.
You can check.
About the battery later on. Yeah, you're good. Your microphone is good. That's great.
I got the good one.
Yes. That's why you are my prestigious guest here. You get a good microphone. Yeah, because we're going to, by the end of this year, and all of the 10 countries will always have